Readiness Fund. My name is Boris Vilgorin, and I'm with McSilver Institute of Managed Care Technical Assistance, MCTAC. I'm happy to announce that we have a number of state partners joining us today, and we'll be presenting on this topic. But before we get started with the presentation, there's a couple of basic housekeeping rules. Excuse me. For most of you who have joined the presentation before, you're probably familiar with this. But just to quickly go over, we are going to be collecting all the questions. So please use the chat option at the WebEx presentation. If you're not familiar with it, it's on your right-hand corner. You can chat, click on the chat, and then chat in your questions. We do suggest, if possible, if as the questions come up, please chat them throughout the presentation, and at the end of it, we'll be collecting them and going through as many as possible through the questions. Also, just want to remind folks, as always, the information being presented today is as current up to the date, meaning today it's 7/27. Some information might change in the future, so just wanted to mention that the information is current as of today. We're also recording this presentation, and this will be available sometime in a week or two, both the recording and the PowerPoint presentation at the MCTAC website. So if you do need to access this or share it with your colleagues, we will be notifying all the participants when this is available on our line. So with that, I will turn this over to our state partners to take over and to start the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Boris. Good morning, everybody. This is Donna Bradbury. I'm the Associate Commissioner for the Children's Division at the Office of Mental Health, and I'll be joined by other members of our team, and we won't do introductions up front. People will just introduce themselves when they speak. So welcome to our update on readiness funding. Today's agenda, we can go to the next slide. We have an hour with you, a little bit less than an hour at this point. Today's agenda includes a recap of investments that have already been made previously, as well as investments to come and enhanced transition rates. We're going to review the state's proposal for the use of the new $3.5 million in Children's Managed Care Readiness Funds, which includes a number of various investments on peer supports, OCFS and OMH transition planning grants, OASIS technical assistance, some allocation training for OCFS providers interested in 29I licensure, as well as behavioral health IT work. Then we'll have time, as Boris indicated, for questions and feedback, and we'll talk about next steps. So first, a recap of investments, and then going over enhanced transition rates. So this slide is really a nice, succinct reminder that the state has already made a number of one-time as well as ongoing investments over the past 2 years or so. So just to summarize what's on the slide here, Department of Health, as well as the Office for Children and Family Services, distributed $18 million to voluntary foster care agencies to support work that they wanted to do on strategic planning, infrastructure building, training, and health information technology, which included EHR purchases. Also, OMH and OASIS administered $6 million in state grants, also for infrastructure and IT costs. And there was another $5 million that OMH provided to address various gaps that our HCBS providers were experiencing. The state continues to value peer services, and as such, we have continually been paying for not just training, but also credentialing of family peer advocates to grow the workforce. and we have indeed credentialed more than 260 family peer advocates to date, and we're also working on a similar process to grow the youth peer workforce. And then finally, we're reminded with MCTAC organizing this WebEx that the state continues to support MCTAC, as well as the RPCs, the Regional Planning Consortium, all of which supports this transition. So just a few words about enhanced transition rates for the services formerly known as SPA services, now known as Children and Family Treatment and Support Services. So when those services are effective, there will be higher rates on a temporary basis for providers of those services. We've calculated those rates to cover the costs that providers will incur to hire and train staff and to ramp up essentially while they're waiting for the volume of recipients to come in and utilize those services. So each service will receive a 25% increase to the rates for the first 6 months, and then that will decrease to 11% for the second 6 months. Okay, and just a review now at this point for our plans for the new $3.5 million in Children's Readiness Funds. So the enacted budget for the fiscal year 2018-2019 includes $3.5 million to support readiness activities for the children's transformation, and the plan will include development grants for youth and family peer supports, transition planning grants for both OCFS and OMH providers. It will include technical assistance for OASIS providers, some cost allocation training for OCFS providers that are interested in a 29I licensure, and also information technology. So peer services, both youth peer and family peer, the state considers to be absolutely critical to the new children's design. And so therefore, we are investing in development grants to support not only the credentialing process for peers, which as we know is essential. Providers of these services must be credentialed in order to deliver them, but also to stabilize the currently designated providers while they're waiting, again, for these the volume really to ramp up. And we also have a number of peer support service providers that are currently HCBS providers that will be transitioning to state plan. And so the goal here is to support providers during that transition process. That includes providing some state dollars to ensure that children and their families are receiving these services in advance of the transition between when these services are HCBS services and when they become state plan services. So just to ease the clunkiness of that transition. So eligible providers will be current OMH family peer support services and youth peer service providers who are designated to provide these services. Amos?
Sure. This is Amos Lane, Deputy Commissioner of the Office of Mental Health. I'm going to talk a little bit about some transition planning grants we're going to be giving to the deep end providers at OCFS and OMH that really are critical to the transition in that they currently provide HCBS care coordination and a comprehensive array of services, and the state will be providing $25,000 grants for each provider that's eligible for these funds for both OCFS and OMH. And these funds will be available to make sure that each of these providers has a comprehensive transition plan in place and that the state is supporting that transition as we move into managed care. So for these providers participating in this initiative, the state will be offering hands-on support to help inform their plan and the focus and training on key elements for leadership to ensure that we have a successful transition. So the $25,000 will be eligible to be used for any current consultant costs or any other startup costs or gaps within the current plan, including infrastructure and IT costs directly related to the transition. If a provider currently has consultant resources or existing agency resources that are focused on the plan, you can use that to complete these activities. But the state will also be going through a process to select a consultant using current authority that we have through a mini-bid process, and that so if you don't currently have a consultant, the state will use its current process to leverage a good price and to make one available to you. And providers will need to submit a transition plan at the end, basically reflecting your comprehensive approach to the transition. So that the purpose of this grant and this entire exercise of the state engaging with enhanced hands-on support is really to ensure that these deep end providers, vital access providers, have a comprehensive plan in place, focusing on those key elements that are going to be critical to success. And really our mutual goal is to successfully transition to managed care and to expand these services consistent with the state's design.
So do we have Maria or Steve to talk about technical assistance for OASIS?
All right. Maybe what we can do is, I think Steve needs to use his attendee ID when he calls in. So, yeah, but see, there's no phone there. So maybe we can skip this slide and go back to it in a moment. And Steve, if you want to maybe hang up and try to call back in with the attendee ID. The panelist. Yeah, the panelist link with the attendee ID.
Okay, so we will return to the content in the slide.
Can you open up his line?
Is it because it would open up? So move on to
Steve,
come back.
Yeah, Steve.
Try again.
Can you indicate in the chat whether you want us to just cover your slide quickly or whether you want us to come back to it?
We can give a quick overview of the intent here, right, what we're trying to accomplish, and then maybe in the discussion, if the OASIS team has access to present.
He's saying to cover it quickly.
Okay, so we've put aside funds that OASIS is going to be using to enter into a technical assistance contract. So all of the OASIS designated providers that are going to be providing the new services will be participating and have access to a contract that's going to be focusing on some specialized training for the substance use disorder field and some program-specific one-to-one training, really focused on managed care readiness, billing preparation. So currently there's 13 designated OASIS agencies, and OASIS will be working to put in place that infrastructure to support the OASIS field.
Great. Thanks, Daniel. Okay, Laura?
Yep. So this is Laura Velez from OCFS, and just very quickly, those of you who are in the foster care world know that we have been working on developing the 29I license for our voluntary agencies to provide limited health care services. And as part of that, Mimi Weber and her team have been meeting with and training our providers to bring them up to speed on what they need to do. One of the questions that has consistently come up are related to cost allocations, and there's some confusion among the providers and a need for clarity around what cost allocation in this new environment will look like. So in order to address that set of needs, we have set aside $100,000 to provide trainings and workshops for our providers to review the guidance and to assist them in developing the infrastructure that they will need related to budgeting and cost allocation under this new license. So this training will be available to all of the OCFS voluntary agencies who are applying for a 29I license. So this, I think, will be really beneficial to our providers who have consistently expressed confusion in this area, and we strongly encourage all of you to attend. That's it for me.
Great. Thanks, Laura.
So this is Amos Lane again. We have $1 million set aside of the $3.5 million that's focused on an initiative to provide behavioral health information technology support for agencies with really little or no Medicaid billing experience that's going to be participating in the transition. So we're really going to be looking at entities that have been designated, that are working to put in place contracts, that are looking to participate and start billing Medicaid, and providing technical assistance and support to those agencies so that they can successfully expand services and bill and get paid for those. So we are working on the framework for that. We're exploring a contract that would offer some technical assistance, and an element of this will also include some grants to participating agencies, similar to what we talked about with the VAP and transition planning grants. So there'll be more details coming out on all of these initiatives, but the goal here is transition activities start in the late fall, services start January 1st. What we're trying to do in each of these elements is really start to move forward with the specifics, with the awards, letters, guidelines, so that funds start flowing in the early fall, and that agencies are using and benefiting for these funds for the transition. So our goal really is to start getting these elements moving forward to support the field. So more details to come on each of these, and I know that we want to leave a period open here for some questions and feedback. We'll be looking through everyone's comments and responding as McPack described.
Okay. All right, just wanted to, hi, this is Boris again. Just want to confirm that this is the last slide of the presentation. Great, thank you. So we're going to be moving, so thank you to everybody from the state for presenting on this. We're now going to be switching to our questions and feedback portion of this presentation. So if you can just give us a little time, we received a number of questions, and so we'll just take a second to look at them. Questions. All right. First question here, will any of these funds be available for palliative care?
There are several elements of the state's managed care plan. The presentation we're giving now for the 3.5 that's been allocated for this purpose is for the behavioral health field. So we have OCFS, OASAS, and OMH designated entities is really the focus of these funds. So the overall DOH plan I know has different elements and support for palliative care and the other participating agencies.
That's great. Thanks for that. Does the SPS and YP development grants are for all organizations who have applied for these services?
So Boris, is that question focused on the IT? Here, it is focused on existing providers that are providing these services, that are preparing for a transition and expanding. The enhanced rates will be available for all new providers. So we have presented to CMS in our original that the state intends to pay a 25% enhanced rate for the first 6 months, 11% for the second 6 months. That'll be available for all new providers of family support services because we know the challenges about hiring staff, training, and to provide services to cover your costs. So those enhanced rates should be factored into your plan and projections as you start to offer these services. But the $1 million that we have available will be focused on existing providers that have credentialed staff and that provide these services that are preparing for the transition so that we can ensure that they successfully move over and start to expand. But the enhanced rates will be available for all family support and youth peer support providers so that they can expand services, hire, train for that initial 1-year period.
Got it. Thank you for that. So, yeah, we have actually a number of questions, I think very much in a similar fashion, just clarifying that these funds are available for the providers that have been described, but for only those who have been designated or will be designated and are planning to provide these services, and not for all of the providers who might have not applied or not designated or looking not to be. Is that accurate? Because we have a number of questions about, yes, do you have to be one of those?
So what we're giving is an overview of the state's intent, the state's focus, what our plan is. That next layer of detail that we'll be coming out with really describes the requirements of these funds, what the state's expecting, what the funds have to be used for. But you're absolutely correct, Boris, that these funds are intended for agencies that are progressing along, meaning they're designated, they either currently provide they currently provide these services for the state, and they're going to be participating in the transition. And ultimately, when we come out with the details about participation and getting the funds, it is about demonstrating that you're successfully preparing to launch and start providing services. So there's going to be requirements for all these different buckets, including that you've successfully completed your designation, that you successfully start to have contracts in place with plans, and that you have a plan really to execute an expansion of these services. So these funds are not available for entities that are exploring whether or not they want to apply for these services and considering, moving forward, or new entities that are really starting to explore an expansion into this line of work. I think that the state's framework of enhanced rates for the first year, I think really helps new entities that are looking to expand, because the state's intent is really to expand all these services, and we know new partners are going to be key to that. But what the state is really focusing on is the current system that has to transition into managed care successfully and start expanding to address need out there that we know exists. And so the enhanced rates really are, an opportunity available for new providers coming into the field. But all of these buckets that we're talking about are entities currently doing this work that have to prepare to move into a new setting.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. There's a little confusion about the trainings that were mentioned for the OCFS 29I providers. I think that was just a mention about future trainings. I don't think anything yet has been scheduled. So just wanted to clarify, we have a question on that.
Correct, that's right.
Yeah, that's correct. We're working on enhanced training for that, and there'll be more details to ensure we're supporting the field.
All right, excellent. Couple of questions on the transition grant and the consultant piece. A couple of folks submitted a question wondering if the thought is that the entire grant will go towards a consultant, or that some of those funds could be used for hiring staff or staff onboarding or any activities relating to staffing, or is this, again, just for the consultant to create a transitioning plan?
So those funds we're calling them transition planning grants, but in our guidance, we will be explaining any eligible costs that those funds can be used for. What we believe, these deep end providers we view as vital access providers for the transition. We believe one of the most important things will be for each of them to have a comprehensive informed plan. And some of you may have a plan that has many or all the key elements. What the state's going to be doing there is really engaging with more hands-on support to ensure that the agency's plan is informed and focused. And so some agencies may need more use of those funds for consultants, and others may have plans and they know exactly where their gaps are, and they really have a thought-out approach for each of the key elements that the state believes and will be training and engaging are important for the transition. So we will allow different eligible costs, but what the state is interested in is making sure that we're supporting you in terms of focusing on a smooth and successful transition. So we will be requiring agencies at the completion, of those grants to submit a comprehensive transition plan with key elements. And I think that'll help inform the state as we continue to support the field in the transition, as well as the provider to successfully execute. So the answer is yes, we're going to have a broader eligibility for the use of the funds. It's not necessarily solely for consultant and planning purposes, but I think what you'll see is it'll vary based on provider agency, based on how far along you are in the actual transition plan activities already that you're going through.
Excellent, thank you. Any sense on the timing of these grants?
We are working to get out guidance in the late summer, early fall for these elements. So, I mean, what will happen is the state will issue a letter, describing in detail what the expectations are, what the funds can be used for, what the steps are going to be to participate, and then providers that are interested in participating, that are eligible, will start moving forward. And so the timing, our goal is to get all this stuff in motion, early fall, so that you're actually benefiting from this, well before the advance of the January 1, April 1, and July and following year dates.
Excellent, thank you. If a provider qualifies basically for more than one of these categories, would it be possible for that provider to, for example, get the BHIT portion or be part of that and also get comprehensive transition plan grant?
I think what you'll see is the comprehensive transition plan is really focused on providers that have deep end business. They're doing waiver services. They're doing a full array of services. The BHIT grants are focused on the other end of the spectrum of providers that don't have Medicaid billing experience. They don't have a lot of infrastructure, but it is possible in all the buckets we described for providers to participate in more than one bucket. A good example of that may be the family support field. There will be providers that are receiving family support grants that also may have little or no Medicaid billing experience, and they may be able to participate in the BHIT initiative.
Got it. So mentioning BHIT, we have a question since some providers are both adult and children providers and might have participated in the adult transition and BHIT funds from that side. Will those providers still be eligible if they fall into this category to be part of these BHIT funds?
I think we'll be looking at the criteria for eligibility and participation in that. Clearly, providers that participated in the adult BHIT project did get support to start to set up infrastructure, did get some grant funds to purchase EHR and billing software. So they may not be eligible because they already have the infrastructure and the intent of what we're trying to do here.
Got it. Thank you. There's a request to maybe expand a little bit about on the peer support side of the grants and what is expected and how that would work. Any additional information around there?
So I think the state is actively working. We actually pay for training for family support credentialing. We set up a credentialing process. We're looking to do the same thing on the youth peer support side. We're looking to ensure that we're helping to pay for training, that more and more youth peer support are getting credentialed. So I think there's a real focused effort on the part of the state to keep expanding people that are able to provide youth peer support and family support. So more details will be coming out in the fall as we roll out that $1 million in that area.
Okay. All right, just kind of looking through some of the questions. I think I'm not sure if you guys got them as well, and if there's any questions that I might be missing. I think because there's a number that Emil, you already went over, and please feel free for the participants. Please feel free to continue submitting your questions as we still do have some time to answer them.
Boris, this is Donna. I just while people are typing more questions, Steve, it looks like Steve might have the capacity to join us. I just wanted to invite him to say a few words if he wanted to about the technical assistance for OASIS providers.
Sure, of course.
Thanks, Donna. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hey, great. I thank you for covering our slide. We're in process of negotiating the provider of our technical assistance, and our focus is really going to be to help those OASIS agencies who haven't had any experience in terms of billing Medicaid. And those are primarily residential providers. Our outpatient services, we don't have any that are specific to children, so they will have had experience with adults. A lot of our adult residential programs, which also offer programs to kids, will have some background on that. So we're going to do the general trainings that will help people understand the billing codes and some of the nuances related to it, and then do the one-to-one to really help those agencies for whom this is a whole new world for them.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. And actually, since now we can hear you, there is a question for OASIS specifically, and the question was, how would an OASIS provider know that they're fall into this category or designated, or will be could potentially receive these funds?
We'll send you a draft notice.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, looking through other questions that have come in. Okay, are OCFS foster care agencies eligible? It says for $100 million for BHIT. I don't think we talked about $100 million, but for BHIT, only those that have never done any Medicaid billing at all.
Mimi, you want to take that one? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, I think
the question. Yeah, go ahead. No, I think the question is are OCFS agencies eligible for BHIT, or do they also have to be have no experience in Medicaid billing to be eligible for that for BHIT?
Right. It's a two-fold eligibility process. First and foremost, you're an OCFS provider, and then secondly, you have not had experience billing Medicaid previously. Right.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Just again. Right. So I think from the agencies, we got a couple of questions for the agencies who, you know, fall actually into multiple categories, meaning they have an OMH license, an OCFS. Some might even have OASIS or all three. When we talk about these buckets, you know, if you do qualify as a vital access provider, I assume you qualify only as once, not based on potential multiple licenses that you currently have with different state agencies. So that's the, I guess, clarifying question.
Correct, Boris. Thank you very much. There are agencies that may do work with various different state agencies, but we're only talking about one transition planning grant if you do business with both OMH and OASIS.
Excellent, thank you. I think we covered most of them in one way or another. I'm just, again, doing a quick check here. Any sense on how a critical or vital provider is defined, or any overview on that?
Yes, we've defined the universe as providers that currently are HCBS care coordinators, ICC care coordinators. So there are 50 agencies in the field that operate either the B2H waiver or the SED waiver or both. And it's that field that is going to be very critical for the transition. And we want to make sure that, we actively engage in some hands-on support for that transition, and that there is a plan focused on all the key elements needed for success, so that these agencies will move over their business and expand. And so that's the current universe that's eligible for participation.
Excellent. We did get a couple of questions on the rates and what they will be. And I just recently did a whole roadshow on children's transition. That is a very common question. I know my answer has been soon. In regards to all the actual rates, I don't know if there's any additional update, but I have been saying soon.
I think that's helpful, Boris. So we came out with the manual, the billing manual, which has all the rules. It has all the framework. DOH had posted the rates out there in January, so there were rates out there for public comment that should still be out there. So we'll find the links and get them out to folks. But the final rates will be coming out shortly to the plans and to the providers. We're working on getting those out in a memo so that you can see them, because we know it's critical that you need to model, assumptions for these services and make sure you're covering costs as you look to expand and offer these, as we launch in January.
Excellent. And I think this might be the final question. In regards to, I guess, providers should be just awaiting a letter, some sort of notification that would confirm that they are part of one group or another, again, either vital access or qualify for other, because we have a couple of questions on, are there lists of providers who, and how do I know, that I might qualify for these? So again, any sense on that process?
I think what the state will do is we will post all of these letters and publications as we come out with them. So we're pushing really to start rolling out stuff late summer, early fall. So as the state keeps releasing more details on each of these initiatives, we will make sure we're posting them very clearly, and we will post lists of agencies that are participating and eligible, and as well as notify you directly, as you indicated, Boris. So we will be completely transparent and continue to release more and more details as we keep moving forward.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other last thoughts or questions, or comments from the state folks before we wrap up?
Not for we.
All right. Again, I just wanted to thank the partners for joining and presenting on this, and for all the participants for joining. Please continue if you have questions that will come up after this presentation, either directly to MCTAC. There's numerous ways to contact the state through the different email boxes. So we encourage folks to send those in, as was mentioned. Much more information to still be forthcoming. So please look out for that. And we also will be reposting anything that the state has put out there to make sure folks are getting the information that is needed. And again, thank you for all, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.